Information-fueled.
Opinion-driven.
This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
6:07 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in to Wednesday. It is June 25th. Real quickly, before we move on, KGB, we were talking about the New York Times and CNN, how they are disputing what President Trump says about Iran's nuclear facilities being obliterated. And so I asked on the Daily Dan poll today, watch us on YouTube and take the poll. Who do you believe? Do you believe as Donald Trump will say, the failing New York Times and CNN, or do you believe Donald Trump, CNN and the New York Times, they are reporting that we've only put Iran back a couple of months in their nuclear abilities? And Donald Trump, of course, as you all know, he's been saying that it's been obliterated. So we asked the question today is, who do you believe, CNN and the New York Times or Donald Trump? And so at last check, Joan had it at, what was it you said, Joan? 97%, and I said 95% sided with Donald Trump. So
what's your guess now?
We have more people jumping in, and that always messes with the equation here. So I'm going to say 98% agree with Donald Trump.
And I'm going to go 90. I'm going to go 94.
You're going to go 94?
Yeah, I'm going to go back down.
So so for the game, just for this purpose, are we going, if we're doing prices right, like you can't go over, or are we doing
just what's the number?
Dan, you got it, 97%.
Oh, man.
So you were off by just 1%, but there is now 3% of people believing CNN and New York Times, which I honestly believe that this was going to be 100% throughout the entire show.
All right, well, we'll continue. If you want to go and you want to check that out, feel free. It's the Daily Dan poll. By the way, you can watch us anywhere if you're the type that likes to watch radio shows in progress. YouTube, X, 997WTN.com, and Facebook as well. People tell me that it is very entertaining. I don't know why, but hey, thanks for doing so. Also, you want to check us out if you want to listen online via the streaming. You can find us on the iHeart Media app, iHeart Radio app, I guess it is, and also the WTN app. And also tune in. All right. So President Trump, he is at NATO. And by the way, he has received a lot, and I mean a lot of love at NATO. I was actually surprised at this, but the president arrived in NATO. We were talking earlier. He gets off the plane and he's got a big white hat that says USA. Now, if you don't know real quickly what NATO is, it is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's a collection of countries like America, the European countries, Canada, and others. And they collectively form a resistance to, back when it started, the Soviet Union, but now these days, Russia. And America is clearly the lead dog, the lead contributor from a monetary standpoint. Many would say that NATO and all these NATO countries, they really gravy train off of America. And that has been a point of contention for Donald Trump for a long time, because we pay a lot of money to keep NATO afloat, and there's other countries that pay next to nothing. And so for a long time, the goal with NATO was that these countries were supposed to pay 2% of their GDP into the into NATO to keep it afloat. Well, America has been paying a lot more than 2%, and there's a lot of countries within NATO that actually barely do 1%, and most of them don't do 2%. And Trump has been always angry about that. Again, that's what I love about Donald Trump. He is always America first. So Trump arrives, and the Secretary General of NATO saluted Donald Trump as everyone settled in, and a major, major announcement. Listen to this.
It will also be a massive achievement in making NATO fairer. For decades, the United States sought to get Europe to truly step up. Now, European allies and Canada will equalize their defense spending with the United States. So let me salute President Trump's long-standing leadership in calling for NATO to increase defense spending.
Wow. So now, apparently, and the leader of NATO is thanking Donald Trump, which is kind of funny because you had the Democrats, especially heading into his first term, where they were saying, oh, no, Donald Trump's going to destroy NATO. He's going to leave NATO. Actually, no. What he's been saying all along is that he wants NATO to pay its fair share because the United States has been paying more than 2% for years. And we've gone through all these presidents who have just allowed NATO to get away with that, taking advantage of America. And Donald Trump said no more. He has been demanding that NATO step up to the plate and pay their fair share. And now, apparently, with the exception, I think, of Spain, everybody's going to pay 5%. It actually sounds like they're excited to pay 5%. And they're thanking Donald Trump for his leadership in this role. And so what I love about Donald Trump is that he's always looking out for us. He's always looking out for America. So we've been paying about 3.5%. These other countries, again, have been paying maybe 2%, which is the goal. Again, most don't even pay that. So now, apparently, and again, and I realize there's, probably some people that are saying, NATO, who cares? It's not necessarily about NATO. It is about Donald Trump being the leader, the worldwide leader, the leader of the free world, and how he is now really, I don't know if you would say that he strong-armed NATO, but he told them, you will pay your fair share. And now you have the leader of NATO saying, you know what? All right, we're going to go ahead. We are all going to agree to pay 5% GDP. Here's more.
Today, I am pleased to announce that NATO has already added an additional $1 trillion in defense spending over the past decade. Mr. President, dear Donald, that is thanks to you pushing us. And tomorrow we will build on that foundation and add trillions more in defense spending because we need to do this.
I love that NATO is doing what they finally should have been doing for, years and years now. And paying their fair share. And I think part of what's going on here, of course, is they notice that Vladimir Putin is becoming more and more emboldened. And so they do understand that Russia is a problem. Russia continues to be a problem. And Donald Trump, his thing has always been that he is sick and tired of babysitting Europe. He's sick and tired of having to be America having to be the world's policeman. And he said, you need to be able to take care of yourself. And so this is part of that dynamic. This is part of that goal that Donald Trump has been telling Europe they need to do, which is you need to step up, NATO. You need to be able to take care of yourself. We're tired of being the world's policeman. So now everybody, all these NATO countries are going to be paying, apparently, they say, 5%, and we'll see how long that lasts. By the way, headlines is out there. The headlines out there this morning is that the ceasefire between Iran and Israel, that does continue. That was CNN breaking news this morning. The ceasefire does continue. I've got a little bit more on Iran this morning and a lot more straight ahead, including some great audio. Some great audio from J.D. Vance. Joan, have you heard this audio from last night when old J.D., the vice president, was speaking at the Republican State Party dinner in Ohio?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Oh, my gosh. It is awesome. I've got that coming up as well. Very busy morning. It is 6:15 on Nashville's Morning News. Time to check the roads on WTN. As far as your weather for today, holy mackerel. Weather today, a high of 98, going to be somewhat cloudy, but it's going to feel like 110. And it looks like, is this breaking news, Joan? Lawmakers furious over last-minute cancellations of briefings on Iran.
I saw it this morning.
Okay, because they tend to abuse the whole breaking news.
Well, it's that whole thing that we talked about yesterday with Hakeem Jeffries saying, nobody called me.
Oh, yes.
Right. And so what actually happened was because I believe it was because of those claims, because they were being babies about it, they decided to move it from Tuesday to Friday.
To Friday.
So
okay.
they're postponing it, but they're still getting the briefing. But of course, that's going to cause.
Well, I think part of what's going on is that there was a leak, and that led to the CNN and the New York Times disputing what Donald Trump is saying about the obliteration of Iran's nuclear program. And so that also might be part of it.
Could be.
Because they can't, Donald Trump and the Republicans, they cannot trust the Democrats to keep their mouths shut. They just can't. And so for the Trump administration, they're probably like, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put this off until Friday, and they got to figure out, to be honest, what they end up telling the Democrats, because I mean they're a threat to our national security, because they'll leak whatever information they can to make Donald Trump look bad. That's number one, and number two, we don't even know if the information that they're leaking is correct. Mm-hmm. And so I totally understand the Trump administration saying, you know what, screw you. We'll tell you when we're ready to tell you. And I don't have a problem with it. Apparently, the Democrats, do you know who they've shown? They've shown, and I'll see if I can find the audio. They've shown Chuck Schumer and Adam Schiff. And they're the righteous indignation of Adam Schiff and Chuck Schumer at Donald Trump doing what he's done. I love it. All right, J.D. Vance, Vice President, had a great speech last night at the Republican State Party dinner in Ohio. Some really good moments, and he spoke a little bit about life with Donald Trump.
And the president looks over at me, puts the foreign leader on mute, and says, "This is not going very well," and he presses the red button. And my eyes get really big, and I'm like, "Mr. President, you know what just happened?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Nuclear, nuclear." And 2 minutes later, a guy walks in with a Diet Coke, and he looks back at me and he says, "It wasn't nuclear, it's just the Diet Coke button." And so that's the kind of guy, and my fellow Republicans, that we have as the President of the United States.
I love that. I mean, Donald, remember what Bill Maher said about Donald Trump, about how this is a man who actually does have a sense of humor. And clearly, and we know that Donald Trump does have a sense of humor, but it is actually that kind of attitude that makes Donald Trump just getting a little bit serious. It's that kind of attitude that makes Donald Trump so successful at what he does. You never know what he's going to do, right? J.D. Vance also gave the crowd the middle finger. He did. He actually hoisted the middle finger right up. Listen to this.
Trust me. In Washington, D.C., they have this thing where I think it means we're number one in Washington, D.C., but all the pink-haired people throw up this sign, and I think, that means we're number one, right? I choose to take that as that symbol in Washington. But all kidding aside...
So he's holding up the middle finger, and people don't really know what to do. So just in case you're keeping score... We had the President of the United States yesterday dropping the F-bomb.
They don't know what the they're doing.
And then we had the Vice President hoisting the middle finger. That's life in America today. Quite the day yesterday, of course. We all know what's been going on. And as we continue to follow the events, not only here in America, but in Iran, Israel, NATO as well, we do have some news regarding Nashville to talk about. I'm going to do that coming up here at 6:35 on Nashville's Morning News on WTN. The other thing JD spoke about real quickly was about the Trump success stories that we have seen so far here in 2025 in Donald Trump's second administration. I think we would all agree the economy is doing better. That is true. You can throw all the numbers you want out, but the economy is doing better. The tariff negotiations, they do seem to be going well. We already have a deal with China. By the way, on the tariffs, you did have J.D. Vance talking about the reasoning behind the tariffs, at least part of the reasoning behind these tariff wars.
Because here's the crazy thing. You go to Germany, you go to Japan, you go to South Korea. Some of these countries, by the way, are very important allies of ours. But how many American-made automobiles do you see on the streets of these foreign countries?
None.
Very often, zero. but we allow all of these countries to come in and do business on our shores. Well, the deal is fair trade. If we're going to let you do business in the United States of America, you damn well let us do business in your country, because that's how we create prosperity for American workers.
Yep, that is J.D. Vance. And, of course, a lot of people, every time J.D. gives a speech, man, people always talk about how he needs to run for president next time around. And I keep telling you, folks, I am stuck between J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. We'll have to see ultimately what the Republican Party decides to do. He also spoke about, of course, the successes on the southern border.
And the final and most important thing, and I think this is the most important issue confronting this country, and it was certainly the most important issue that was destroying this country over the past 4 years, and that is the issue of illegal immigration. Now, if I had stood here in October of 2024, and you had told me that after 45 days of the Trump administration, we would have illegal border crossings down between 95 to 99%, I would have said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I believe the president is very serious about this, and I believe the president is very effective. But there is no way that we're going to have illegal border crossings down that much, and I'm happy to report that 1.5 months into the Trump administration, we had illegal border crossings down 99%. It was a radical success, and it happened very quickly.
I mean, look, there's no one that can deny the success of Donald Trump on the southern border. And so all the Democrats have is, he's trying to be a king. He's trying to be a king. Okay, Democrats. J.D. Vance was on fire last night. I've got a couple of more sound bites for you coming up next. Also, by the way, Joan, someone is accusing yours truly, your humble host, ladies and gentlemen, of spreading fake news.
No way.
Yep. I'm going to, before the hour is up, I'm going to disabuse them of that notion, because I take my job of presenting the news to you as truthful, and I take that very seriously. We're going to talk about that coming up on Nashville's Morning News, and right now at 6:24, Joan, what's coming up?
Well, we've got the latest on President Trump's visit to Europe. And also, we'll tell you where residents are being asked to cut back on their water usage. Those stories and more at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.